I'm Idiotech, and today I want to discuss Homefront: The Revolution. So this game came out on the 17th of May for everyone in the US, and for the rest of the world it came out on the 20th, because region locking in 2016. Yeah, so I initially was not going to cover this, and then someone donated it to me, and I thought, well, it's a AAA game, it might be alright. I never had high hopes for the game going in. So I started playing the thing, and my initial impression was actually very positive. It's a great looking game. The facial detail and animation is pretty spot on. The environmental detail, the texture work, the amount of clutter, and the atmosphere. The atmosphere is what really got me in the first 2 hours. It has that same quality that Half-Life 2 had, when you walked outside for the first time and you felt that sense, that oppressive sense that human beings had been taken over and you were subjugated, and you felt that oppressive atmosphere, and it was done really, really well in Half-Life 2, and the same can be said for Homefront Revolution. It's very impressive when it comes to its atmosphere, very impressive. I felt that sense of living in a dystopian world, where I was downtrodden and oppressed, and we're the rebels, and we're trying to fight back, and that, as a theme, fits really, really well with the gameplay model that they offer, which is essentially Far Cry. You take over outposts, you sabotage things, you blow up trucks, you kill guys, standard stuff, standard open world stuff. But you combine those two elements, and thematically it works really well. And so for the first 2 hours, I was quite impressed by the visual presentation and by the atmosphere. And I thought it was quite good, and it was promising. And at first, I was kind of like, whoa, okay. This is a lot more than I expected, right? I didn't expect this level of quality out of a game that was getting 5s, or in one case from Jim Sterling, a 1 out of 10. And then after, 5 more hours, I started to see why those sites were giving it 5s out of 10. The fundamental problem is that the game itself, the actual core gameplay, and this is completely ignoring the countless bugs, and there are bugs, and I will get into that, the performance issues on PC, the core gameplay loop is just not fun. It's just straight up not fun. You go from outpost to outpost, you clear them out, you take them over. In most cases, it doesn't even involve combat. You just walk into a room and hack a module, or press a button, or turn on a generator, and then your team takes over that part of the city. And you'll do this over and over and over again. Meanwhile, you'll also sabotage things, you'll kill specific enemies, leaders, you'll blow up trucks. There's missions you find on notice boards. They're very unexciting. And you do all of this to raise the revolt level, essentially. It's called Hearts and Minds, but it's a revolt level. And once you get that revolt level up to 100%, that portion of the city revolts, takes over the streets, gets rid of the enemy. And in this case, if you don't know, by the way, I should probably tell you, I'm not very good at this job, I apologize. You're fighting off the Koreans. The Koreans have invaded the United States. The general premise is they sold us a bunch of technology. It's the North Koreans, by the way. They sold us a bunch of technology, and they built in a backdoor and essentially turned off our military, and then took over the United States and subjugated the people. Anyway, so you inspire a revolution in a certain sector of a city, and then they take over. And the goal is to take over the entire city. And the actual story thread is the leader of the revolution has been captured, and you have to go get him back. That's about it. And honestly, the voice acting is good, actually. I think the voice acting is good. What I don't think is good is the writing. The writing is incredibly cheesy, packed with one-liners. It's not very entertaining, I will say. But the game's very mature as well. It has some very mature themes, people being beaten, tortured. It's an adult game. And the thing about this game that really sort of got me for a while is I see so much potential in the idea. The initial 2 hours I had with the game, I was impressed on a visual level. I was impressed by the atmosphere. I haven't felt that sense that I was living in a dystopian world since Half-Life 2, really. And it nails that. It really, really does. As for the gunplay, it's okay. It's average stuff, Just imagine Far Cry, because that's what the game is, okay? The gunplay is okay. I found using a battle rifle, which is kind of a sniper rifle. You can have a semi-automatic version or a bolt-action version, or one that shoots fireworks for some reason. I found that to be the most efficient weapon. It's much easier to kill people because the game is packed with recoil on the weapons. And if you want to take down a soldier, you pretty much have to get headshots, which I like that, actually. I like the fact they reward headshots. I think that's a very good thing. But if you shoot them in the body, it takes a long time to take them down. So, the combat's okay. It's sufficient. It's not amazing. I don't write home about it. I do like the weapons modification system. Essentially, you can customize your weapons on the fly. Very similar to Crysis. If you've played Crysis, you can just pause the game for a second, bring up your gun, change certain aspects of it. And the animations for that are really impressive. He rips the gun apart and puts new things on. I like that. I thought it was good. And it does solve the two-weapon conundrum that you see with console games. Now, this is very much a console port, and we should probably start talking about the technical issues now. It doesn't run well. However, on a GTX 980 and an i7 4790K with 16 gigabytes of RAM, running at 1080p, if I lowered everything to high, right, except for the textures, I left them on very high. If I lowered all the effects, all the object detail, particle effects, shadows, to high, then I got 70 to 100 FPS, pretty consistently. Occasionally it would drop below 60, occasionally, but 90% of the time I was getting 70 to 100 FPS. Now, I was playing the version that released on the 20th, not the version that released on the 17th. I couldn't see any information on the store page regarding any updates, but that doesn't mean there hasn't been any. So, that could be part of the reason. However, it's not okay, and it does drop, and it does glitch a lot. You'll get hitching very frequently, and I think it's to do with the game's autosave system, but just on a very regular basis, you just get hitching. The game pauses for like 1 second or 2 seconds, and then you keep moving. And that's, you know, not the most enjoyable thing. But for me, the main technical issue that kind of took me out of the game wasn't necessarily the performance, because I could tune that and tweak that to get something playable. It was the constant sound bugs. The music in the game repetitively loops, and when it ends its loop, it just cuts off and then restarts. It's completely unfinished. The audio and dialogue stuff cuts out frequently. Someone will be talking about a mission, and then they just stop talking. And you're like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? There's a lot of bugs like that in the game. The game just feels overall very unfinished. And it's obvious when playing it that the game's been pushed out the door. It's obvious. Like, every little detail. It's not like big stuff, like missions breaking and not working. It's tiny details. It's polish. It completely lacks any polish. And it's really apparent when you're playing the game. And it's a shame, because I know that the developers in the credits say some stuff about being pushed between publisher and having all sorts of financial issues. And I somewhat empathize with them, you know? They have managed to create a game that is not terrible. It's not a great game. I'm not going to recommend the game to you, but it isn't a terrible video game. And I think with another 6 months in the oven, minus some cheesy writing and some slightly generic gameplay, you know, it's an open world game, I'm starting to get fatigued with that, and I think a lot of people are. It's not a terrible video game. But with the bugs, with the lack of polish, and with just the lack of variety in the actual moment-to-moment gameplay, it isn't a game worth recommending. It isn't a game worth buying. You know, maybe if they patch it later down the road, it will be, but I doubt that's going to happen. So, it's difficult for me to come to a conclusion on this, and that's why I made a discussion video instead of a review, instead of a first impressions, and that's why this is a more off-the-cuff format. Because part of me really thought in the first 2 hours that the game had a shitload of promise. It really, really felt like I was going to get something really good. And then it just fell apart due to a lack of polish, a lack of time, a lack of, not effort, I wouldn't say effort, but just not enough time to finish the product, and it really shows. And that's a shame, because I honestly think if they'd had more time and more money, this could have actually been a really good game. And sadly, because of the business elements of this industry, not the creative and development aspects, it's not a great game. If you're looking for a recommendation, obviously I would not recommend the game. Maybe if it goes down to maybe $20 on sale in the future and they fix the performance issues, it might be worth your time, you know? It's something to fill some time. And if you do love open world games and you're not sick of that genre, it's a competent one. But at this price, at this time, it's not a game I can recommend to you. Anyway, if you found this interesting, please let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you want to help support my channel, please like, favorite, share, and subscribe. And I will see you guys next time.